Hello there. I am going to speak to you about the zone of proximal development. The zone of proximal development is a child development concept which was discovered by this guy, Lev Vygotsky. Lev Vygotsky was a Russian psychologist whose approach to child development was based on the belief that cognitive functions are a result of social interactions. The easiest way to think of the zone of proximal development is in three parts. These three parts are essentially when a child is trying to understand a new concept. If the child is not ready to understand the concept yet, then that is outside of the zone of proximal development. Once the child is beginning to understand and learn the concept with the help of a parent or another child who knows more about the concept, then that child is in the zone of proximal development. That means that the child is now ready to understand the concept and start doing that concept with the help of a peer or parent or somebody else. Once the child is able to do the task at hand or to understand the concept without the help of anybody, then that child has reached the math or has been able to master it and is now outside of the zone of proximal development again, at which point the task can be changed so that the child is once again in the zone of proximal development. The concept can be described as the moment between what a child cannot learn yet and what a child can master. A good example of this would be a child learning to ride a bicycle. If the child is too young to understand exactly how to use a bicycle, then the child is outside of the zone of proximal development. At this point, a parent will teach the child to use the bicycle by providing support. The parent will more than likely hold on to the child so that the child can use the bicycle and pedal. Once the parent lets go of the child and the child is able to use the bicycle without the help of a parent, then the child has finally accomplished the task and is able to do it on their own. Now, if, for example, the child is using training wheels on the bicycle instead of support from a parent, or even with the support of a parent, and the child learns to use the bicycle or with the bicycle with the assistance of the extra wheels in the back, then you may remove the training wheels and then the child can start learning a bicycle without the training wheels. And this would be an example of how one would go from being able to master a task to then changing the task so that the child can start learning it all over again. This aspect of cognitive development is specifically important because in order for the children to understand the concept, they must be ready and able to learn. If the child is not ready to understand the concept, then more than likely the child will become frustrated and will give up easily. So it is important for parents or educators or teachers to understand exactly where the child's zone of proximal development is. However, if the child is being taught a task that is already understood, for example, if a child is being taught to use a tricycle when the child has already been able to use a bicycle, then this will be more difficult because the child will become bored, essentially. To be in the zone of proximal development, the child must be engaged and interested in learning an activity. So if the child is learning an activity that they already know how to do, then they will not be interested and that will be out of the zone of proximal development. So for educators especially, the zone of proximal development is important because it will create happy students. If the students are ready to learn academics, then they will be happier. They will be challenged and they will understand. Parents and educators, in order to facilitate the aspect of development, must be patient, and they should understand exactly what the zone of proximal development is for each child, because every children is different. Some children will be ready before others, and it is important to understand exactly where a specific child is. Of course, in classrooms where there are multiple kids, it becomes more difficult for teachers to be able to tell exactly which zone of proximal development each child is in. But it does help if parents at home understand this so that they may help the child with other basic tasks. That is the zone of proximal development.